Well, well, well. Certainly not what I was expecting to wake up to this afternoon. Seeing Twitter, all a Twitter, and Discord freaking out over something that we had thought was never going to happen, actually. We thought that it was going to... StarCraft 2 was just going to sink into the obscurity, and we were never going to get another patch again. But here we are, March 8th. It's not a gigantic patch, but they are, in fact, patching StarCraft 2. It is about damn time. The patch itself, the patch notes, are very interesting. They were not what I thought they were going to be. But we're going to go ahead and discuss that now with Chickenman. What does it mean to the future of StarCraft 2? Our queen walks truly dead. Is Protoss back in 2-base all-in mode? Who knows? We'll just have to see.
Oh.
Chicken. I didn't think we'd be having this conversation, sir, and especially not so soon.
I really didn't either. If you came from the future and told me StarCraft never got another patch, I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, all right.
I kind of expected that.
That seems about right. Fair. Yep. Yeah, I'm shocked. So honestly, and I want to kind of touch on that real quick. Any change right now, no matter how maybe perceived negative it is, unless it's truly just going to destroy the game, any change should be seen as a good thing, even if you don't agree with the changes, because this means at least this is better than if they had changed nothing. So I am happy to see that we're getting a patch. I want to start with that. I'm very, very excited we're getting a patch. The things in this patch are not at all what I expected they were going to be. Some of them I get, and some of them like, okay, yeah, I can see that. And then the other stuff I just have like, wow, I did not see that coming. But let's talk about it, man. Are you ready to chat? I want to talk about this. Okay, so I have the patch notes up on my screen now. I'm assuming you've read them already. I don't actually know. You have, okay. It's pretty short. This is honestly it's one of the shorter patches I've ever seen, except for maybe like hotfix updates. Right. You know, where like, oh, okay, this is not as, this is broken. We'll fix it. But let's just read it. I'm going to read through it. StarCraft 2 5.0.9 PTR patch notes. So keep in mind, guys, this is not on the live version of the client yet. We're going to be discussing it as if this is going to be the changes that are coming out, but it is possible that they adjust some of these final numbers. It's not guaranteed that it's going to be the exact changes that we're going over here today. We
also, I don't believe, have a date for potential release yet.
March 8th, 2022. That is today. In Taro Adun, we are releasing a balance patch which was put together by our very own StarCraft 2 community. Over the past couple months, we have been working with various members of the community and tournament organizers to create a balance update for the game. We would like to recognize and acknowledge the members of the group for the upcoming changes you see below. Mind you, they do not acknowledge or even mention who those people are. So there's some shadow organization that exists behind StarCraft 2 that is now doing the patch notes, apparently.
I imagine their names rhyme with like Lambo and Hearthstone and
just rhyme with them, mind you. It's not them, of course.
Right. They just rhyme with those.
They're
it's clearly
just
Rambo and
Rambo and Larstum.
And Larstum.
Yeah. All right, so let's just start from the top here. We're gonna go. I want to go through all the notes, and then we can touch each one. A big one off the bat. Shield battery. Starting energy reduced from 100 to 50 outside of the next field. So that is a Nexus field is what we're assuming. We need to Blizzard, please invest in a spell checker for the intern.
The website Grammarly. Invest in using the website Grammarly.
That would be great. Well, here's the problem. Next field would be more grammatically correct than Nexus field. But if they could just have somebody read it one more time, please. And thank you. That's all we'd like. All right, Dark Templar, possibly the biggest change of the patch notes in my opinion, now have a 0.75 second attack delay after blink. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's big.
Void Ray increased build time from 37 seconds to 43. Increased mineral cost from 200 to 250. So 2 nerfs for the Void Ray.
Basically a full revert to what it was before the last patch, which was in August 2020.
Queen can no longer transfuse off of creep. Okay, this is where we're going to get into it. I'm going to continue forward because we're going to read them all, guys, and then we're going to discuss them. This is a bonkers change, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Widowmine reduced the effectiveness of drilling claws from 0.71 seconds to 1.07 seconds. Lurker, basically the same reduction, reduced the effectiveness of adaptive talon from 0.71 seconds to 1.07 seconds. So it's the exact same as drilling claws. And Nidus Worm increased starting creep by 1 unit in each direction around the worm once it spawns. Okay, so let's go over the ones that are like Resident Sleeper. Who cares? Dark Templar. I want to care.
Listen,
it there's so little. It doesn't. No, it doesn't matter.
I have strong feelings about this.
I know
okay?
you do.
I have strong feelings about this. I think the spirit of the change is very good.
Yes, I do.
It has a very specific purpose, which is to make planetaries not just die. And in general, PvT, blink DTs can be very painful.
Sure.
And this helps a little bit.
Yeah, no, it helps. It helps.
I think it's encouraging not using something that actually does require an amount of micro. And as we've talked about, Protoss doesn't have a lot of those. I don't know if I love this change, but I do understand the spirit of it. I don't really think it's actually going to make a difference.
So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be major. I think you're absolutely right in that it is a change that's designed for PvT. And I think that just seeing a lot of PvTs where you can instantly blink your Dark Templar on top of a planetary and they immediately one hit, it's like, that's crazy. It is interesting to note, again, not too big of a deal, but the 0.75 second attack delay is faster than their normal attack delay of 1.21 seconds. I just looked that up. So they will still hit kind of quickly. But
like
there is a little cooldown. Yeah.
It's like half an attack delay, right? Yeah. So
I like the change. I'm in favor of it because
we'll
I think people.
I think they'll be fine.
I think people were losing planetaries, losing buildings, losing all of their workers before they could even scan. Like that. I think that's the problem. It's like you would blink in, an attack would already be done, and then you would get the alert, and you'd look over. You would have to scan, and a second attack would already be going out, and that is very difficult, I think, to deal with. So overall, I'm fine with it. Widowmine and Lurker, I think this is a good Lurker change. Adaptive Talons was kind of bananas. That
good.
you could burrow that fast. I think that the slow is appropriate. It's going to make ZVT late game a little bit more manageable for Terrans. And I think that we're going to have to see some less mindless ape kind of play from the Zergs. I am guilty of this 100%, of just picking up all your lurkers and YOLOing them in and then just burrowing them at the very last second that I could. It's, of course, going to be faster. The lurker normal burrow speed is 2 seconds, so it's a full second faster. So it is still a much faster burrow. So I'm fine with it.
This is a very specific change, I think, as well, to make disruptors slightly more or slightly harder to dodge the disruptor novas for the Zerg players, right? Because that is a very common thing to see. The novas come out, the lurkers pop up, they move back, they push forward, they burrow.
Here's the
Makes
interesting
that a
thing.
little harder, which is important because of our void ray change.
It is. Well, I personally, I think this is more of a ZVT change myself, but I only say that because I haven't. Not that ZVP late game doesn't involve lurkers, but I'm seeing them less and less because I think that. And Lambo actually did a video on this recently. That late game ZVP is not lurkers. But
I have news for you.
Yeah,
We're
maybe
be seeing it more.
Maybe now. Yeah, we'll get to that change in a second. The Widowmine change, I think this is also good. I think that this is
Good change.
mainly, I think this is fine. The pros were not. What strikes me as interesting about this patch is that this seems mainly focused at like Diamond Masters low GM. Because I don't think anything that's changed pros were having a hard time with, except for the Queen and except for the Void Ray. I don't think anything else is really gonna affect too much. Anyways, that's just my little insert.
I think you're
on it.
mostly right.
Yeah. The Widowmine change, making it slower to burrow, that just gives players more time to attack them before they truly dive into the ground. You would see, Lingbane just absolutely get demolished, but, and it forces both of these changes, the Widowmine and the Lurker, forces Terran and Zerg to, you can't just burrow them at the last second possible. You have to actually have to do a little bit of thinking. You have
slightly more potential to punish, like Widowmines being a little late to burrow or Lurkers being a little late to burrow, which can definitely impact games for sure.
Oh, sure.
Even I would say even at the highest level, like there's definitely potential to see these changes become very impactful.
Absolutely. And maybe in TVP, Widowmine drops are so disgusting.
Yeah.
Have a little bit of extra time, and that's a fairly significant amount of time. It's 0.36 seconds, which that's like
when
a
you're
third of a second right there.
I mean, how many actions can Clem do in 0.36 seconds?
Oh, a lot.
That's a lot of actions.
Yeah. And it's not that the 0.3 seconds is going to be necessarily the difference between, I can do this extra action now in between. It's going to be the difference of I pulled my probes 0.3 seconds a little bit later, and now they're not all going to die instead of they are. That's what you're going to see. You still have to react to this just exactly the same. You still have to react to Lurkers exactly the same, but you have that little bit of buffer time. And that's really all it's going to do.
Yep.
Okay. Nidus Worm. This is one of the more, I think, impactful changes, but it's definitely on a minor list.
I can tell you exactly what happened here.
I can't.
Exactly.
But go for it. Here. Tell me what happened.
The Queen change happened, and a Zerg player said, "But that
what
means
the heck?
If we Nidus, we can't transfuse the Nidus immediately." And somebody said, "Just
so
add more
true.
creep around it." That's exactly what happened. Just the pro said that, Lambo said that, and whoever it was like, "Oh, we'll just add a little creep around the Nidus." Yeah, that's fine.
Yep, that's fine. It doesn't actually really change anything, and I think you're 120% on point with that. Because that would be awful if you could pop out of a Nidus with your queens and you couldn't transfuse it. That would be insane. Yeah. So yeah, that is 100%. It is a change based on a change. So it is a Zerg buff hidden in two nerfs, basically, is what it is. Sure. It's actually a buff so that one of the nerfs isn't so unplayable. That's what it is there. Because you would never make a Nidus again if you couldn't transfuse it.
Oh,
you would almost never do it. Yeah.
It would be silly.
You'd
have
silly.
to wait to transfuse. Yeah, those moments are really hype too. Like,
is
he gonna get the transfuse off? No, it was a roach first.
Yeah.
So not having that would be just terrible.
Yeah. Okay, let's discuss the big three: the shield battery, the void ray, and the queen. Shield battery. Now, I have talked to people about this. So again, just to go over this, starting energy reduced from 100 to 50 outside of the Nexus field. So this means if you finish your shield battery and it's not within a Nexus field, that it's going to start with half the amount of energy as normal. Now, I have been discussing with people, and I have had, I would say, soft confirmed that your shield battery will finish with 100 energy even if your Nexus is not finished. It just needs to be in range of a building Nexus. So that means when you make your shield battery at your third, when you make a shield battery, at a base that's building, it's still going to finish with full energy. So basically nothing is changing there. So what is changing? Well, the situations where you wouldn't have a Nexus next to your shield battery, I can think of like 3 off the top of my head. Number 1, Proxy Stargate, which I was just doing yesterday. That is going to be harder for PvT if you wanted to do that cheese. Cannon rushes, where you go into a proxy afterwards. Because typically, if it's just a straight cannon rush, you're not going to put shield batteries down. But those have fallen out of style now. Usually, if you're going to win with just pure cannon, you're going to win because you got cannons and then you make immortals or something like that. So those are going to get weaker. And then the third one is super late game Protoss against. I usually see it versus Zerg, where they set up very forward, like outposts is what I like to call them, of just shield batteries and cannons. Yeah,
for like Tempests, right? The Tempests just chill there and they can poke at everything from. Yep. Yeah, okay, that's true. Yep. I think this is honestly going to impact PvP and PvT a lot more than PvZ.
Yeah, I don't see this impacting PvZ almost at all, actually.
Yeah, unless you're in a Florencio game or maybe a Grimmy game. But for the most part, it's not likely to affect PvZ. PvT, obviously, like you mentioned, Void Ray, proxy Void Rays, it's huge, I guess, nerf to that.
Yeah,
you did mention that the finishing nexuses. I saw there was some discussion about like potentially trying to kind of use that.
Yeah. But, so what I'm almost
wondering, it would be immediately not worth it.
Yeah, it would be very bad. I think I could see some. I'm sure there's going to be some guy who does it, but like because you can, in theory, right before the shield battery finishes, just throw down a nexus for like 2 seconds and then cancel it, and then use that money somewhere else. It should, in theory, give you the full energy. But it's such a mineral loss for it.
Yeah. You lose 100 minerals guaranteed, and how many minerals would you have to spend to get that 50 energy? Just 100. You just make a second shield battery. It's literally the same cost, and now you have 2.
Right. But if you, let's say you make
overcharge, you might want the Nexus anyways. So it could be like another reason to build a Nexus while you're doing it.
The only reason I think people might do it, and again, I think we're all in agreement that it's bad. It's not going to be good. People aren't going to do it seriously. Would be if you have like 5 or 6 batteries all finishing at like the same time or something.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's true.
Yeah, I agree with you that I don't think it's worth it, and this is mainly just going to change the proxy play, and I guess it can change PvZ a bit. I'll be honest with you, Cannon Rush and like full committed Cannon Rush has fallen out of favor, I think, in PvZ. I can't tell you the last time I've played against one. It's always Gate Forge. It's just like if they're going to go cannons, they're just going to make a few, and then they're going to macro back at home. But again, maybe that's going to change now because the Void Ray is not such an absolute powerhouse. Did you find those patch notes, by the way? I'm curious.
It's a full reversal for the Void Ray.
It's a full reverse.
Okay. The movement speed and the Flux Veins movement speed. But I don't know, did those change later? No, they didn't. There was no later change. Right?
No, this was the last one. This is our next patch from this one here.
Yeah,
which is crazy. But
so the cost is reverted and the build time is reverted exactly. So it was 250, 150. Yeah. So
so the only things that are
on those two.
The only things that are staying for the Void Ray are the slight movement speed increase of 0.35 seconds and the Flux Veins upgrade. Huh.
Which,
yeah, that is super interesting. I think that Void Rays. I'm gonna see it now because I don't think Void Ray openers are going to be common anymore.
They're not going to be the standard. People will still do them for sure. Mm-hmm. We will still see them. They will still be viable in some fashion.
Yeah.
But they will not be the ubiquitous. This is the standard anymore. We're going to see more. I would imagine Oracle openers.
Yep.
We'll probably see more. We might see a lot more like 2 base pushes from Protoss again, just because you might as well mix them in. At the highest levels, I'm not really sure exactly what we're going to see yet. I'm really going to be paying attention to some of the players like Max Pack. And I'm just realizing now that I was casting Estrella like 2 days ago. And it was literally yesterday. And he was doing completely kind of weird openers. I'm like, for sure he knew this patch was coming.
Oh, yeah. He's
like,
experimenting.
I need to figure out
I need to figure something else out. Yeah.
And he didn't build like any air units for a while.
I could still see one Void Ray into Oracle being an opener. For sure.
Yes, me too.
Because the Void Ray secures more so it helps secure the third. It denies a lot of scouting. Zerg has to I'm speaking specifically in PvZ right now. It denies a lot of scouting from the overlords, or at least the Zerg has to be more careful, invest more into it, whether they get overlord speed or they send in an overseer or something like that. Helps you secure your third a little bit earlier. With the 6-second change though, and it is more money at the same time. I don't know. The Void Ray looking rough. You know, it's just like the first one is fine, but I think about this and it's like, okay, what about the people that went 10 Void Rays in a game?
Yeah,
you know,
that's
10 Void Rays. That's an extra
that.
minute. Yeah,
That's almost, it's going to be like a bamboozle if somebody does that. That's something that like a Haas would pull out, and the Zerg wouldn't expect it, and all of a sudden they run across the map with that like Flex Veins Void Rays. But it's way more committed now. Because if you think about it, a Void Ray is now 100 less than a carrier. So maybe just get some carriers quicker. Like
there have been 2 base carrier
builds.
builds.
Are still going to happen.
I think so too. I mean, that hasn't changed at all. Basically, to go for like super fast carrier. Yeah,
you might as well just do it. It's still pretty much the same. But I do think I'm also very interested in how this is going to affect PvP. This patch is actually like really going to shake up PvP, but I don't know if I want to get into that right now.
We can in a bit for sure.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said something interesting with the carrier builds. I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. The carrier builds are super committed for sure. Like once you start it and you're on 2 base, it's very hard to actually go and take another base. But at the same time, at the receiving end for Zerg, I have just lost games that have lasted like 13 minutes doing that because I'm just taking enough damage every time. And now that Queens can't transfuse off of creep, which this is probably a good segue, there's no way I can push across the map until I get basically corruptors. Hydras won't cut it. Yeah. If you're already making carriers like immediately, I can't just start making Hydras really. I have to go to corruptors. Like I'm pretty much locked in.
But they can't get as many Void Rays out to counter that Corruptor force, right?
That's true. That is true.
You do have kind of that background where Corruptors suddenly become a lot better.
They are much better.
Void Ray base that you're used to seeing.
So that is also, I think, pretty important. With the nerf to Void Ray, you do at the same... You got to think about it, right? Everything that is nerfed, whatever unit they were there to counter, also kind of gets buffed a little bit, right? So with your nerf to Void Ray, you've got a buff to Corruptors. So, I mean, and I was certainly, you guys know it in my ZVPs, Queen Walk every game. Go across the map with Queens, go with Roaches, like just fucking do it. It's so good, and it's so hard to hold. So now, if they are going for a Sky Toss type of army, which I don't really see, I don't see how that's really going to happen. To be very honest with you, I think you see somebody going for lots of Void Rays now. You still go for a decent amount of Queens because they're still excellent defense. Like, they are just as good defensively as before, and it's just their aggression that they've nerfed a bit. I'm still not ready to go into the transfuse quite yet, but if you are going like, oh, this guy is just spamming Void Rays or whatever. Now you can just kind of go to Hydras. You have the time. You could have the time to just go Hydra Ling instead. Hydra Ling Bane. Because, I mean, an extra full minute for 10 Void Rays plus 500 minerals. I mean, that's it right there. I could skip Roachworn in that case and just go for Hydra Den, go for Ling, go for Banes, and go across the map. And Hydras demolish Void Rays. I mean,
they do. Those minerals have to come out of somewhere too, right? And I imagine it would be maybe delays on a fourth base, less static
storm,
defense.
Less static defense.
Yeah, there's a lot of places that could come from the Protoss. So definitely gives more opening to the actual units of fighting instead of the Queen, which I think is the entire point. Actually, of all of this.
I think so too. So all right, let's talk about the Queen. So I'm a Zerg player, as everybody knows. And I obviously saw this, and I'm a bit sad about it. I transfuse. So there's several things. This is everybody's immediate like knee-jerk reaction was Queen Walks are dead. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Queen Walks going across the map. If you catch them on the middle of the map now, that is very, very bad. Zergs now need to be much, much, much more careful with their queens. And if it wasn't incentivized to spread creep already, which of course it already was, you now need to spread creep like a madman because anywhere your creep is not cannot be defended with queens. You cannot send queens over there. It's a dead zone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is going to be, and people are going to lose to this, I promise you. So ZVZ, watch out, because nobody's thinking of ZVZ, but Killjoy brought up a super good idea and reason. Is when you play ZVZ, if you get hit by the speedling all in, the common practice is to put 2 queens on the ramp, and there's no creep on your ramp. So you need to make sure you put a creep tumor down first, so that you can actually have creep on your ramp.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's actually, that's, oof.
Queens walking to your third to anchor it down, or like 2 queens walking to your third to anchor it down. That is much more dangerous now because you don't usually creep spread as hard in ZVZ. You just don't.
Yeah.
But you don't always make that many queens either. So again, I think it's going to be very weird and funky situations. The size of your main and of your natural now, and how far away the ramp between those 2 are, is now going to be a much bigger deal. I hope it grays out your ability. That's all I'm hoping for. I hope it grays it out like you can't, like it shows you visually that you can't use it.
Ooh, I hope so.
I hope so.
It, like, it doesn't even let you click the button. Like when you try to click the button, it's like an error.
It just says creep. It doesn't say it has to be your creep, because as I understand in StarCraft 2, there's no designator for your creep versus their creep. It's just creep.
Yeah. Not in competitive anyways.
Not in competitive anyway. Yeah, Let's look at queens in each of the matchups then, because this is one of the bigger changes, and it's going to be one of the everything else has been either number change or like, mineral change, delay, whatever, right? This is the first thing that's actually mechanically now very different. So queens and ZVZ, we kind of just went through that, where, and this still applies to all the other matchups too, but you cannot, like, you now need to spread creep in your main really hard again. Like, you need to make sure you have your main fully creeped up, because you can't afford to be on a patch of non-creeped space. I think that here's my thing though, and I do want to put this out there. ZVP, I do not think this kills the Queen Walk. I really don't. I think if you really wanted to, all you got to do, there's like multiple options on how you could still do this.
Yeah.
It means it means you have to invest a little bit more still, but you can absolutely still Queen Walk.
Well, all you got to do, what you mentioned earlier, which is that it nerfs it at a much lower level.
Yeah.
In Diamond, these options you're talking about are going to be real rough.
Yeah.
For, again, I've said Lambo about 50 times today, but for Lambo, he can do these things
easily.
You're about to say.
Yeah, you can do these things. You just have to. I mean, there was the build, which was literally, what was it, the German taxi, as people were calling it? I can't even remember now, because people don't do it anymore. I bet you will see them again. Dropper Lords can make creep. So all you do is, if you load up all your queens and speed Dropper Lords, and you're going to get there faster. You do have to spend a bit more money, not only to make the Dropper Lords, but also to make Overlord speed, because you do absolutely need Overlord speed. So that is going to put a delay. Yeah. However, you will get there faster. You could probably just do this without like +1 missile. Like lately, Queen Walks have been like +1 missile or Carapace. So you just forget that, and you spend a little bit more. You can get over there. You have 8 to 12 queens in Dropper Lords. You drop them all on the ground. You immediately just start spreading creep. You can actually even have them so that they do spread creep anywhere they go. Like, you just select them, you auto-click spread creep, and they'll drop it. Whenever they stop, they'll just drop creep on the ground. It'll be awkward. It'll be weird, for sure, but it's not undoable. Like,
we will 100% see that.
Oh, we are.
It's guaranteed to happen. We're going to see Protoss probably still try to do Void Ray or Quick Carrier, things like that, and we will see Zergs respond, trying to do some sort of Queen Walk. And, well, I'll be interested to see how that interaction still works. I think you're right. I think the Queen Walk is still possible, but I think now it goes into a niche strategy that we might see, like some of the more inventive Zergs pull out. Somebody who isn't afraid of doing something a little bit wild, a little bit out there.
Yeah. I mean, like, I sincerely don't think it's not even. I don't think it's that hard to do something like that. Or the second thing I'm thinking of, and there's two ways you could do this. You could even do that overlord strategy and not make the dropper lords, and you just move the queens across the map. Because if you have 12 queens, they either need to start attacking you mid-map, which is possible. Like, they could do that because now you're just tanking damage, but they can't heal. So that is one of, like, it just really depends on what the situation is. But you could just bring overlords across the map with you. Like, just grab them all and just bring, like, 50 overlords with you and drop creep everywhere.
Here you go.
And
just click the overlords on your queens
yeah.
out front. And then they will just follow them. And every time they stop for a second, they'll drop a little creep.
Yep.
And if you need to stop and fight, immediately you have creep on top of you.
Yeah.
There you go. It's a strat.
It's super true. Like, you can, and at that point you have so many overlords, you just make one overlord per queen. You could literally just click one of them on each of your queens and then just walk across the map. Like, it's not that bad.
Yep.
All you got to do is invest in overlord speed. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple, so that you can run them away. It's not even so that the overlords can keep up with your queens, because your queens are slow as hell. It's so that you can run the overlords away if you need
overlords are slower than queens off creep.
I think they are, which is impressive.
Because you can catch one in ZVZ.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, or all of this can also be done with a Nidus. Now that it's gonna have creep a little bit faster, 1 unit of creep instantly. So you're gonna have a decent little spot, and you can just immediately put creep tumors down. That's another thing, is usually your queens are gonna have all this energy. You just slap down a couple of creep tumors. Now you don't even need your overlords. If they die, it's not even that big of a deal. What this is gonna stop, quote unquote, is being able to push fully into like the Protoss main. But queen walks weren't really there they were there to deal critical damage, which they would do. Yeah. They were not there to necessarily walk into the main and then like fully end the Protoss. No, that's like,
right.
As I have done it, you just make a Hydra while you're doing all this. You drone up the 4th base, and now you just hit him again with Hydras. You do it, and that's how you can kill him. Yeah, I don't know. It's like this change. It's annoying, but it's certainly not unworkable.
I think it makes it a little more complicated and a little more vulnerable, right? If you do lose those overlords, if the creep tumors get killed from the Nidus, you're in trouble. Now you've got a bunch of queens. They can't save each other. They can't fight. They can do like a little bit, but they might just straight up die if you can't get those overlords there in time. And, it will come down to targeting down overlords or something like that. And, if you mess up your micro for 1 second, you could be in some trouble.
I
think it makes it more vulnerable than it was. So it's at least like there is something there.
But also at the same time, if it forces Protoss to attack overlords or creep tumors instead of actual units that are killing them,
right,
that is also bad. That's also true. Really not good. This forces Zerg to be more positionally aware, and it forces them to be more invested in the queen walk. That's all this is going to do if they still want to queen walk at all. Because it is, you're definitely correct. It is still dangerous. It is still a dangerous thing to do. If they kill the Nidus before it's finished, if you your overlords and you lose a bunch of them before you're able to get creep tumors down, all of these things can certainly happen. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be super, super interesting. I'm not the most upset with this change. Honestly, this doesn't necessarily upset me for ZVP. I don't like that I can't be like 2 feet off of creep and suddenly my queens can't use an entire ability. That's what I don't like.
That is the painful thing. Like it's meant for queen walks, but
it is going to affect a lot more than that.
Yeah, you're going to be like against mutas or there's going to be like banshees and you're just going to be like, God damn it, this is so annoying. It's like the non-cancelable creep tumors where it's like it's just annoying. Kind of annoying.
It's just an annoyance
a lot of the time. Yeah.
Yep. I agree. That was, and again, this is just going to force Zerg players, again, if you haven't been already, you really need to shove creep super hard.
Right.
So that's just what you have to do. I mean, sorry, guys. Like, that's it. I'm guilty of not really being the best, but you should, when you're taking your 4th base, there should be creep over there already. That, in theory, that's the best way you should be doing this. I think it's going to I think it's going to de-incentivize a lot of risky expansions like that, where you could take a fourth that wasn't creeped, you just move your queens over there, and you're like, okay, yeah, we're fine. Of course, this only is bad so long up to the point where
I think we're going to see
finished.
a lot more Overlord creep drops being used, which honestly is really good because
That's
an
cool to
ability
me.
that I don't think gets seen a lot, but like I think it definitely has its use. And if you can just make sure all your Overlords are always creeping, like you said, and then, oh, I need some Overlords over here, you just send them over with Overlord speed, and they're just there. And then you can kind of creep that up with your queens as you go. But I think it's one of those things that if players become very aware of that, they'll just be able to do it. Like it'll just kind of add into a lot of players' part of their cycles, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so we've gone over the patch notes. We've kind of gone through our thoughts on them. Do you like this patch? Just overall, do you think this is a good patch?
Yeah. Yep. For the exact reason you said, which is pretty much any patch would be a good patch.
Right.
Right. Like anything shakes it up a bit. We're already talking about like multiple strategies, and we are not the smart people to talk about multiple strategies.
No, we're really not. No.
So the amount of different possible things that this can spawn there's
quite
so many of them. There's hundreds, thousands of different strategies that we're going to see. And that's just exciting. Even if we end up feeling like, man, I wish this.
Man, I wish they
didn't
didn't change queens like that. It's still going to be good because it's going to force anything that forces different play, regardless if it is a better or worse style of play, is better for the game right now.
Yeah.
Simply because now I will say this. I think it's a good patch exactly for the reason you just said. I think it's a confusing patch. I am confused about it. Right now, I think this is probably the patch we're going to see. Maybe some tweaks, maybe some changes. I think that the ones that are going to go through are the shield battery because it basically affects nothing except for proxies, which everybody complains about anyways. The Dark Templar one, I think they might tune back their changes a little bit with Void Rays just slightly, so it's somewhere between where it was before.
Sure.
And I honestly think they're
40
not
seconds and 2:25.
I mean something. I mean, at least a little bit. I think that full reversion is probably a bad idea, but again, it's leading them down a path that I don't think is going to be that great anyways. And then I think that they're not going to touch the queen. I think that change is going through. So Zerg players get used to not being able to transfuse off of creep.
Yeah.
And get used to, again, if you're not spreading creep like absolutely crazy, just start doing it, man, because you have to now. You've got to.
Somebody in chat did say that Hearthstone apparently said in a video that there will be more balance patches.
Okay,
so
that's great.
They might have like a team that they're talking to and somebody who's willing to work on it. And so we might be able to look forward to more small balance patches like this.
Hey, that's great.
That would be fantastic.
That would be so fantastic.
I hope so.
Same here. That is a big win for StarCraft 2.
Huge.
Especially. Yeah. And when was this last patch? When did this happen?
August 2020.
Oh, 2 years ago.
2.5. More than 2.5, honestly. Like, that's a long time ago.
No. It's not even 2 years ago. It's less than 2 years. It's like a year and a half.
Oh, year and a half.
Yeah. Okay. I was rounding up. You were going too far.
I went too far.
You went very far.
I did math on stream again, guys. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Never again.
All right. So I guess it's time to make another Lord of the Rings patch notes video. So be looking forward to all that, guys. Well, I appreciate you, Chicken. Thank you for joining me for this impromptu discussion on these patch notes. Very happy that we could have this chat. Very happy that we could talk about patch notes at all for StarCraft 2. That's out of the hypothetical realm and actually is changes that is going to come to the game. Whether or not they're going to fix the game, whether or not it's going to be well received by the community, you will just have to wait and see, to be honest with you. But yeah, regardless, I am excited that we're getting some attention to the to StarCraft 2. And again, this is all just PTR, so none of this has actually gone through yet. We'll just have to wait and see what they're actually going to force through.